Hi, Tom. Good seeing you again.
Good to see you. Happy days.
Hi. Yeah, I'm just
Share spreadsheets.
Good seeing you again.
Speak that way.
You get the seat on the side.
Awesome. Great. Okay, be over here, but be careful. Be careful to trip over the here. Well, at the right time, then you kick it. Okay. Got it. All right, Tom. Go ahead and sit down. I'm going to see.
And can we get some water? Is there either a glass or something?
Yeah.
Hi.
Tom, I'm just going to you're down here, and I just want to make sure we see you pretty good. Can you guys see Tom okay? Or should he come?
Tom, I'm Barbara Marshman, editor of the editorial pages of the Mercury News, and this is
Hi, how are you?
And this is Ed Clendaniel.
Hi, how are you?
Let's let Dan come back in the room. He's getting Tom some water.
And what are your names again? I just caught that very quickly.
Sorry, Barbara Marshman, M-A-R-S-H-M-A-N. And I'm editor of the editorial pages.
Great.
And I'm Ed Clendaniel.
Great.
And I'm an editorial writer.
Excellent. Excellent.
Paul, you all seated okay there? Did we get you enough room?
I'm good. I try not to
And I hope.
dislodge anything.
Man, you're stretched out there, Teresa.
Yeah.
Do you want to swap?
I could just.
Yeah. That way you won't be stretched out.
You're stretched
Yeah.
to the limit on your cord.
Okay.
I want you to
Thank you.
unplug or disengage or whatever it is.
Okay, Tom, I'm trying to get the best shot
Okay.
possible of you.
Thank
We
you.
want to make you look good here, at least from a video standpoint. So.
Okay. So are you doing any bike riding?
Yeah, I've been doing a shitload of it.
They're
But
going to talk bikes now. We might as well.
Saturday. Hey, wait a minute.
We'll be right back.
Want to talk spreadsheets later?
That's your favorite, huh? That's your sport.
No, that's his. He likes
okay.
Let's go.
So, Tom, thank you. You've met Barb. You've met Ed.
Ed, yes.
You know Dan. You know Teresa.
Yes.
You know Paul. Do you know Steve?
Yeah. We know
Okay.
each other around the block a few times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just dive right in. You know, a lot of people have been saying that there's been a deafening silence almost from you on the Verdara decision. So let's start out by giving you an opportunity
Sure.
right off the bat to give us your evaluation of the decision and what you're thinking is on it.
Well, first of all, I've made a statement at the issuance of the tentative ruling, and I'm going to stay with that statement at this time. I think I said something that's obvious to all of us, that we want the most highly qualified, excellent teachers in front of all of our students in all of their classes. So I am working diligently on different ways to accomplish that. And I said at the same time that I want to make sure that the final judgment, final ruling, doesn't detrimentally affect our ability to recruit and retain and train our teachers.
So
And the governor and I, as named parties in the suit, and Attorney General representing us, have said we're going to wait till we see what the final judgment is before deciding on the appeal.
So do you think 2 years is a reasonable time to determine lifetime tenure, or do you think it may be a legitimate criticism that that's a little early in a career?
Well, separate from the litigation,
Yes.
I've been working on a number of areas where we're bringing together the best minds in the state, educators in the state, from higher education to administrators to teachers, to look at all the issues around how do you provide the most competent workforce possible. How do you build the capacity of our teachers and administrators as instructional leaders. And so we're very focused on a comprehensive approach. There's a document that you may have seen, but Greatness by Design is our report. Linda Darling-Hammond and Chris Steinhauser co-authored this, co-chaired the committee. Again, large number of teachers, large number of administrators. exploring again, how do we, from the very beginning, recruit and bring into the teaching workforce the most capable? And how do we support them during the induction period? And then how do we evaluate them to see whether they should stay on as teachers with tenure, with various due process rights? So that issue, or that question you've asked, Barbara, in terms of the length, I don't think it matters so much what the length of tenure is as to what you do during the time that a teacher is probationary. And having a strong induction program, for instance, a strong mentoring and helping program, will enable the administrators also to see during the course of a year, course of 18 months, what the capabilities are of that probationary teacher and whether they deserve to have the due process rights that go along with tenure.
So you're saying during the course of a year or 18 months. That's adequate if done right?
If done right. And this is where, you know, different administrators have different approaches and different capabilities. Some administrators don't have much background in personnel and in evaluating teachers. And so I think you look at Chris Steinhauser, you look at the administrator in the ABC school district, you look at the Poway plan, where they involve teachers, by the way, also through the arc of a teacher's career, in peer assistance review and coaching a teacher, setting deadlines for that teacher to improve. The struggling teacher who's not getting it has a time frame set by one's peers. So these are some of the things that I think a competent administrator will set up programs like that and be able to make those determinations.
What do you think about
now in the case where tenure is granted, then you have, you know, if the teacher is struggling after that point, where Chris Steinhauser, by the way, and some other administrators I've observed and talked to, say they have very few problems with laying off teachers due to incompetency or lack of performance, because they get it at
dismissal in a second.
They get it at the front end.
Okay.
Basically.
So I guess you at the core believe that a year or 18 months is sufficient.
It's sufficient in most of the cases, and in other cases, then you have other types of evaluation, and I think PAR is.
When you say most of the cases, are you saying individual teacher cases, or are you saying individual school district cases?
In most cases where a teacher's being evaluated as to be incompetent or not, I believe it can be done within that 18 months.
Is there any other state that does it like that?
I'm not aware of another state that does it that way.
Are you aware of any data to support that?
I'm sure there's data out there in terms of the length of tenure in various school systems.
Yeah, that evaluates teacher qualifications
right.
And competency.
For instance, Linda Darling Hammond is very smart and well-seasoned educator, believes that in most cases you can accomplish that evaluation and be clear on it. We recommend in this report, and she also recommends, urban residencies, hands-on practicums, you know, where teachers can, before they're even credentialed, you can see their capabilities. So the idea of at the front end helping.
Here's what I'm asking. California, correct me if I'm wrong, has a shorter tenure period than any place else in the country. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Right.
If that were justified, we would think they would be justified through some data to support it, or some empirical information to support it. Because, frankly, there are some problem teachers out there.
And we acknowledge that.
Okay.
And again,
So
we need to work with them.
I guess what I'm asking is, do you have, you know, it strikes me that's an awful short period of time. It clearly struck the judge that way. It strikes a lot of people, I think. I think people are surprised to learn that. I guess my question is, given that, it seems like there's a burden here to empirically demonstrate that it's justified. Is there any data or any research
let me come to answer
that?
I think in the private sector, managers sort of figure out in 6 months or a year, by a year and a half, if someone's capable of coming up to the expectations of the organization or not. And then shifting to the question you just asked, I don't think there's data the other way either.
Whoa, let's back up a second.
Okay.
Where in the private sector do you get lifetime tenure? That's what we're talking about here. Yeah.
You mean you get tenure, not a job for life, but you get tenure.
Yeah.
You get certain rights. Like if you had an employee that had been with you 3 years or 4 years, in the case here of the education code, does that person deserve a hearing before they're fired? That's the due process question.
Well, doesn't any person, I mean, we don't fire people without having to go through due process. Basic labor law protects all of us to a degree, unless you're an at-will employee.
There's Dan. Going to the other side of what your question I think was getting at too is there any empirical evidence or proof that a longer period of time does help provide a higher quality teacher workforce? I just say in general that these issues seem to be part of what I think is a flaw in thinking, or an unwarranted premise that there is such a large number of bad teachers out there that the way to fix education problems in California is to fire a bunch of teachers, to find out where these bad teachers are and move them out. I fundamentally disagree with that. I think the bigger problem, the bigger challenge, the bigger opportunity to change the status quo and increase effectiveness in student outcomes and student success is investing in our teachers and in the resources in the classroom and the computers, curricular materials. That's where we're going to get the biggest bang for the buck. It's not an issue of the big problem isn't a large number of bad teachers. We need to move them out. If there is a teacher who's abusing students and has evidence against evidence to that effect, that teacher should be moved out as quickly as possible. If there's an incompetent teacher, there should be steps taken to evaluate that teacher, keep good records, and move them out. And when that's done well, it isn't a big price tag. It isn't it isn't a problem that is faced weekly or monthly. So I would say the teacher blaming thing is sort of part of what's going on, I think, in some of the current attacks on some of these issues.
Well, we started out this discussion with the Vergara decision. We've sort of talked here about tenure. There are three legs to the Vergara stool, if you will, right? Let's talk about the second one, the dismissal process, which you've now sort of drifted into. Do you think the dismissal process is reasonable in its time and cost and process?
Well, first of all, I took a stand early on. I'm against layoffs. I would rather not see layoffs, and I work very hard.
I'm not talking about layoffs. That we'll get to layoffs.
Right.
I'm talking about dismissal for competence.
And your
competence or cause.
Yeah.
And what about it?
Do you think the dismissal process for incompetence is a reasonable process in the education system? Do you think it functions well?
I think it's reasonable.
Do you think it functions well?
I think it's reasonable. I think it's, you can always improve things, and Greatness by Design sets out a course of looking at how would you approve.
Why should the dismissal process for teachers be a higher threshold than most other jobs, both in the public sector and the private sector?
Well, I think on a number of fronts. One is academic freedom, and the way a teacher approaches their work may not set well with a principal or a superintendent or a school board member. So I think due process in that dismissal process is important, and documentation, multiple levels of documentation is warranted and it is fair. In fact, when I was a teacher teaching in Title I community in West Pittsburgh, now Bay Point, it was very helpful to have the administrator come in and observe my practice and write up detailed analysis of what I was doing right, what I could improve on, where I was off course. And so, again, having multiple measures of a teacher's work and capabilities is really important. And that, again, is spoken to by the task force report. Multiple measures, including test scores, including a look at
Okay, well, we're sort of drifting here, Tom.
I think they're connected.
Okay, because my question is, why should the burden be significantly higher? And you started to talk about academic freedom. Can you talk about what academic freedom means to you? I understand academic freedom in the college environment, maybe in the high school environment, I'm not sure, but certainly the college environment where there's research issues going on and so forth. But can you explain to me what you mean by academic freedom in the K-12 environment?
It may be something like you're teaching an integrated curricular approach on global warming, and 2 of the school board members don't believe global warming is caused by human activity, and they don't like a teacher espousing those facts or those arguments. They don't like the form of the lesson plan. They don't like the approach of the curriculum. It could be about creation. It could be about evolution. Those are items that still come up in classroom and school district debate.
I can't think of ever hearing of a dismissal proceeding in which that was an issue. Have you? Can you?
Can't think of one offhand. I mean, I'm sure there have been.
Can you think of a dismissal?
Well, Scope's monkey trial, but other than that.
No, I mean, in recent modern day California dismissal hearings that we hear about and read about, I can't. Can you cite one case where academic freedom was at the core of the dismissal process? It comes to mind.
I can't, but I can look into it and see what I could find on it.
Okay.
One of the complaints I hear from teachers, and by the way, I think most teachers are excellent. I think this is a diversion in a way, except that what the judge concluded was that most of the inferior teachers, and of course some are better than others, end up at the most disadvantaged schools. I think that's where the focus has been. But what I hear from teachers in the public schools now is that they are so structured in what they must present, even from day to day. Even if they feel like the kids aren't getting it, they have to follow a curriculum very carefully. Is that not the case? I mean, I'm not sure where they would be able to introduce creationism as a lesson plan.
I think we recently had a little significant controversy over the Holocaust, was a reality or not. I don't know if you recall that news story a couple of weeks ago, and there was an outcry in the community for having a lesson plan like that. I think there are cases where that kind of thing could come in. There may be cases too of racial prejudice or some other kind of prejudice. And that teacher's gone through and been credentialed and hopefully trained and nurtured. After 3 or 5 years, doesn't that teacher deserve a chance for fair hearing?
Yeah, but the original question that had to do with a fair hearing versus a process that is above and beyond almost any other public employee, and certainly above and beyond the private sector. I hear what you're saying about a fair hearing, but why should the threshold be higher?
Again, I think the process works when worked well by proficient administrators. Certainly any process can be improved. This blueprint for action on increasing teacher capacity and doing professional development all across the arc of a teacher's career lays out a roadmap for changes and consideration of changes. I have a working group of managers, administrators, and union officials that are looking at a variety of issues, so that these issues will continue to get examined and debated. I just think fundamentally, again, that it's missing the mark to concentrate so much on blaming teachers, looking for the bad teachers, when, as you said, Barbara, I think most people have an experience that the vast majority of their teachers have been contributing to their life in a very, very positive way, if not excellent, right up there. So I like to look at it as, what do we need to do? We need to invest in our schools. We need smaller class sizes. We need art, music, and drama brought back. We need career education. We need to provide a safe school environment. So I think these are much larger issues that are going to have a bigger impact. The career education work we're doing, I want to go into in some additional detail when the time is right. But I want to emphasize the positive, and where I think, I'm looking at, from my vantage point, the big picture. Where can we get the most change, the most help for students to succeed and close the achievement gap? And that's in investing in our teachers, but also investing in our schools.
Let me ask one other question, then I think we need to pause why we're feeding back there.
I don't know. Hey, you guys, okay, go ahead and ask your question there.
Okay.
We'll talk about it.
So do you expect you're going to appeal?
I've answered the question, which I'm waiting for final judgment, and then we'll take a look.
Assuming it's as it is now, what do you expect?
I expect we're to wait for the governor, who's taken a position that let's wait till we get all the facts in, and I'm standing with the governor on that one.
Tom, give us a sense, teacher performance. How should we measure it? How should we define success?
Multiple measures. Began speaking to that a little bit.
Hold on.
Do you guys have any background noise going on in San Jose?
No.
No, we don't.
We're hearing
We're getting feedback here, and I don't know why. Is there a cell phone maybe or something like that?
No, it's Tom feeding back.
Yeah, but
I think it's the connection. Be my guess.
Okay, well, let's.
are you guys getting bad volume where you're at?
No. Are you still? I think we both turned off our cell phones.
I don't think that.
I think that might be those two are the feed.
Okay.
Okay, let's see what happens.
Let's
Tom,
continue.
apologies for that.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, how should we be measuring performance?
Multiple measures. I mentioned my experience as a teacher, having the principal come in, and then the department head working with the math and science department, or teaching up to senior high and West Pittsburgh at that time. Multiple measures, including evidence of student progress. I mean, it's all about an educator's job, an administrator's job is about improving outcomes for our students so they learn more and have more skills to go compete in the global economy or get a good job locally and go on to college. So that could be samples in August or September compared to writing samples in late May, June. It can be test scores. It can be a variety of things. It could be used to give indication of where the teacher is strong and where the teacher is not. I do believe that it is helpful to have peer review. I'll give you an example. Maryland Avenue Elementary School in Livermore. They were a 1, decile 1. They're now decile 10. They're schools. Quia Quality that Drive authored provided about $150,000, $160,000 extra a year for about 450 schools across California. And they've used that money to invest in developing their profession. Teachers take off 2 hours on Wednesday and share, 5th grade teachers, 3rd grade teachers, share data they're collecting in diagnostic tests and indicators through the course of a week. And they share best practices. And so peer involvement is another area. In certain cases, student involvement.
Let me ask. If I was a teacher, and I came in to Tom Torlakson's school, how And Mr. Torlakson wanted to, of course, tell the teacher that there's a fairly fair basis for measuring performance. And it will consist of these components, and we'll weight it, this is what kind of weight the components. What would those components be, and what kind of weight would you give to them?
Well, the weight, I would need to think a little bit more about it, but certainly a big weight on the personal visit, because you can size someone up when you see them in action. And then there are scheduled visits, and then there are unscheduled visits. So I think you need both. And then, looking at the student work progress.
How would you measure that?
Combination of their work product, like I say, writing samples, their skills demonstrated in math at the beginning of the school year and at the end of the school year. And test scores can be a very formative and diagnostic tool to assist in determining whether a teacher is contributing to that class's success and student success or not. Now, sorting through a lot of issues, we know that there are many factors in the life of a student that determine their success in terms of their health, their family background, whether the parents speak English or have a literacy tradition in their home or not. So you need to balance it very carefully. I put heavy weight on the classroom visits by the administrator and the assigned evaluator, whether it's the department head or a specialist that the school district has trained or the school has trained that has a keen eye for teacher success. I think conversations with students would also be part of my repertoire of the different multiple measures of success. Getting information of how does that teacher come across to the students. I coached for 25 years, 12 championships along the way. You sort of know where students need help and counseling, and you give them that nurturing, helping hand. You know some that are going to be a little bit harder to work on than others. But that kind of experience, the experience I have tells me that having, watching the teacher firsthand and having the principal there or a trained evaluator is very important.
Could we talk for a minute about Common Core? Dan, could I break in?
Absolutely. That's exactly where I wanted to go next.
Okay. I'm just curious. A lot of teachers around here feel like they are not prepared to do this, even though they believe in the philosophy behind it. Do you feel as though there's been adequate preparation for the shift to Common Core?
I think California is doing a good job, and I've been very much involved in it as superintendent, as one who works with the state school board. We have done, scores and scores of workshops and seminars. We've developed modules in instructing in the Common Core in math and in science and in English language arts. So I think my impression is, as I visited schools all across the state, there's some excitement about it. There's some anxiety about it. It's a new teaching method. Teachers want to get it right. They want to be able to, help students integrate the curriculum and see things holistically and connect it to the real world and have critical thinking and problem solving, have teamwork, develop their writing skills and verbal skills. Teachers really want to do this and they want to get it right. And I've talked to teachers, scores of teachers who are excited about it. They welcome the professional development. You may know I led the effort to get $1.25 billion for the implementation of the Common Core, both the internet connectivity and devices, and for the professional development. And I've been in classrooms where teachers are gathered together to do their Common Core training, and they're excited about it. And I find students are excited about it. The SBAC, the test, the assessment tool, we knew it was a field test to determine how the different items worked, as well as to determine if we were technologically ready, and also if we had the staffing to intervene in areas where we needed help. And 3.2 million students took it. We had a showdown with Washington, D.C., with the U.S. Department of Education. We said, we don't want to spend another minute, another dime testing under the old CSTs. Let's concentrate, take that money, and let more students experience the SBAC test. we're doing focus groups. We're going to do surveys of teachers and students. But a lot of feedback from students was, this is fun. This is something I'm challenged by. I find it exciting. I went to a school in Oakland not too long ago, just after the SBAC had been given, and there was enthusiasm by the central office, their technology people, and their curriculum people, working with the site administrator, working with the students. So I see great promise in it, and we've taken a lot of effort. I've taken a lot of effort working with business councils up and down the state, with LA Chamber, San Francisco Bay Area Council, Silicon Valley Leadership, Orange County Council of Businesses, to share what we're doing. And business people like the skill set, these 21st century skills. So I think in California we've avoided some of the controversy. We don't want to rush it so fast that teachers think that they're going to be graded next week on how well they're instructing in Common Core or how well the scores come out. But the plan is to have the actual real test next spring, and it will be the benchmark. And then the year after, there'll be a comparison from benchmark to performance from 2015 March through May to 2016 March through May. We'll have numbers to look at. So I think we're pacing it well, and we've done a lot of work. I have to give good credit to the county offices of education. I've worked very closely with them. They put on their own seminars. Schools that have sent people to training sessions are sharing those teachers' knowledge from those workshops. So it's not like flipping a light switch. It's not like snapping our fingers. It's not going to happen overnight. But I do think it's the right thing for our economy and for the skill set our kids need to compete in the global economy.
And go ahead, Dan.
Okay. Following on the testing there for a second, you realize, though, not only did Arnie Duncan at first not agree with you, and certainly didn't agree with your first plan, but neither did George Miller. And he actually didn't agree with even what the Department of Ed agreed to with you. His quote in one of his press releases was, "Failing to measure and inform parents about how well their child is doing in school for an entire academic year is absolutely the wrong approach." Can you respond to that?
Well, I won't necessarily respond, but I'll make some general comments. You know, teachers are assessing all the time. A report card is one form of assessment. Like I mentioned, Maryland Avenue Elementary School, those teachers are doing diagnostic kind of testing all through the week and the month, and they share data. In fact, they're written up in a book called Data, the Maryland Avenue Elementary School, because they've been so smart about that. So, you know, I would just say that we did the right thing for kids, and teachers get up and cheer when they applaud when I come into their faculty rooms or to a teacher gathering, and they thank me for stopping the craziness of having to do those old tests, because we stopped. Those standards were sunset. We started, aiming at the new standards. Our teachers were already transitioning, so they were grateful for the time saved, and the money allowed us to give every student who's eligible for testing, 3.2 million, the chance to do the field test.
You realize that's not what Miller was advocating. He wasn't advocating that you do the old test. He was advocating that you let folks know the results from the new test.
And the field test that we did, the data wouldn't have made any sense. Psychometrically, any kind of test, expert I think would say it's a jumble, because you were students side by side in the same class were taking different items. To try to do comparisons made no sense. It wasn't a fear of evaluation or anything like that. It was really looking at what is best for students. And guess what? At the end of the day, we got the waiver because we were so adamant, and I was so convinced that it was the right path to do for our kids and our teachers. And you know what? We got our students to have a taste of both the English language arts and the math, and I think having more students having had a chance to work with, whether it's iPod or laptop, has been a great benefit to California's readiness for the benchmark in 2015.
I'm sorry, Barb, I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. I think I'm through that. The other thing I would like to talk about is charter schools, where you see the charter movement at the moment. It's getting some pushback here in San Jose, but there are some pretty good charter schools here also. Where do you think they fit into the state education system from here?
Well, we oversee a number of charter schools. We have a charter school division. We have grants to get charter schools started.
Right.
I think charter schools are here to stay. They're public schools. They're part of the fabric of our education. You know, my approach has been to treat them like any other school. Are they performing? Are they transparent? Are they involving their parents? Are they helping low-income kids? Are they helping English learners? Are they helping special needs kids? Are they skimming from the top to get the best clientele, best parents, best students, or are they really working hard to bring in the diversity of the community from which they're drawing students in their market area? So, you know, I look at it as there's some incredibly outstanding charters. There are some district-sponsored charters. There's independent charters. There's a variety. But where they're struggling, just as with a magnet school or a neighborhood school or partnership academy school, where they're struggling, there needs to be some, you know, intervention, some help offered, some timetables for meeting expectations. And when not, then the authorities, if it's a district charter, need to, you know, take charge and evaluate that school's success, whether it overpromised, whether it underfinanced itself, a variety of factors.
Is the regulation in place strong enough? Because there is one sense, because there are some really bad charters out there, and they seem to persist for a while. There's a sense, even among some of the charter folks, that better enforcement of standards would be a good thing for the movement. Do you think there is enough holding accountable?
I think there could be some improvements. I've long called for, voted for, supported transparency, same disclosures that public elected board members have for a school district, that charters, governing boards should have those same measures of transparency. I think that helps. I think it helps parents see things more clearly and make choices more informed. We are starting something, and its agenda hasn't fully been formed yet, but I initiated the idea of a collaborative. Now, I do lots of enforcement work. I administer, you know, tens of billions of dollars of federal and state money. We go after fraud. We found, you know, over $150 million of fraud on school cafeteria monies that were diverted to other programs. So I have a lot of, you know, enforcement, you know, accountability, responsibility. But the collaborative, I asked the legislature a year ago, and we got $10 million to start a collaborative where it's not the state dictating down. It's a collaborative of the local LEAs and the state, my CDE department, offering assistance. So we're about helping, not just auditing. Check, check, check. Did you meet all the obligations on a, you know, an evaluation form of how you spent the money? What were your outcomes? Were they positive? How would we help you have better outcomes? So whether it's charter schools, public schools, or whether it's magnet schools or regular neighborhood schools, the collaborative is going to be available to help and have expertise. Some of the money we may use, for instance, Chris Steinhauser has a bang-up great PAR program, Peer Assistance Review. We might be able to take 3 of his faculty and pay for their time to go here and have substitute teachers take care of those teaching responsibilities while those experts go and help another district get a PAR program off the ground and going. It might be something implementing the Common Core. It might be something on the LCAP. How do you involve parents more effectively in school? How do you help low-income parents who are traveling? They don't get home till 6 or 6:30, and you hold evening meetings to involve the parents in decision-making. So we're going to do some best practices and offering help through the collaborative. And it's a $10 million effort. The governor made an appointment, the Senate pro tem, the speaker made an appointment, and I'm on it. And I'm going to sit on it because I think it's so important to send a message. We want to help. Educators are all about helping others. And if they're not accountable after a certain period of time, or they don't get it, they don't improve, then other measures need to be taken.
Since you mentioned boards you sit on, or commissions, or panels you sit on CalPERS.
STIRS.
CalSTIRS,
Yes.
I'm sorry, my bad. Could you give us a very quick evaluation of the deal that was just struck and to start funding? Good idea, bad idea?
Great idea, overdue.
Okay.
And I wrote a letter long before they came up with the governor came up with this plan, but I offered any assistance I could in terms of supporting. We needed contributions from the school districts, we needed contributions from the teachers, we needed the state to step up.
What do you think of the value?
I like the plan.
What do you think of the allocation of costs between the district, the state, and the teachers?
I think it came out well. I mean, you could argue, fact is, you could argue over some of the details, but I think fact is, a consensus was reached. And I've talked to administrators, and it's a heavy lift. The district share is not a light load. It's a big responsibility. But they too recognized that they had to fix the system, and they're going to step up to it.
Okay. The amortization period?
I know I've read something about the amortization period, but it seemed reasonable. But I don't know the details of that. My legislative staff followed the bill as it went through its different iterations and actually never raised that issue in terms of particular concern.
Do you know what I'm talking about by the amortization period?
It's something about how long to take out so the budget's balanced and not falling behind. It's the way I would interpret it. But again, it wasn't an issue that came up to my attention.
And the discount rate that CalSTIRS uses? What's your thinking on that?
I wouldn't have an opinion right now.
The rate of return that they use?
I think it's reasonable. Rich Zeiger is my chief deputy, sits in those meetings for the most details, and indicated to me he thought it was reasonable.
Why do you think it's reasonable?
I don't know why he thought it was reasonable. He told me he thought it was reasonable. Something to the effect it wasn't over projecting, it wasn't under projecting when you look at long range 10 to 15 year horizons.
We discussed, let me quickly, before we get to that, while we're on finances, if Prop 44 passes, as you know, there's a rider bill to Prop 44, having to do with school district reserves.
Yes.
Your thoughts on it?
I oppose that.
Why is that?
I think, school, the whole point of local control funding formula was to give authority to local school districts to make decisions. So to me, an elected school board and its superintendent and working with its stakeholders in the community should be able to determine what a good reserve is, a prudent reserve. And so for the state to go in and micromanage, I didn't support it. But I support Prop 44 overall.
And when you say you oppose that, how did you oppose it?
I was asked to state my opinion at it at a meeting of the California county administrators, county offices of education, the 58 superintendents, and I gave a straight out response that I was opposed to it.
You didn't say anything more than that? Like
I've led
writing letters, call the governor or anything like that?
No. I have let AXA know, the Administrators Association, of my support. My opposition to that bill and the support of that position.
Right,
I understand. They didn't want.
I guess what, yeah. Do you think that's the sort of issue that the superintendent of schools should be speaking out on?
I think I did speak out on it. I'm not sure that the outcome will change.
Okay. I mean, was there any correspondence between you and, say, the governor's office on this?
No.
mandated reporting. Last you were in here, we talked about it a little bit. You seem to have a bit of a change of heart in the interim. Could you tell us where you're at today and why?
Well, I'm at supporting, number one, already supporting the Buchanan bill, but on the Mike Gatto bill, I'm in favor of that. As you know, we first did what we could to see whether districts were training or not. And your editorials helped put a big focus on, because we were getting zero information back from school districts saying they were following the law and then telling us when they weren't doing the training, which is sort of obvious that districts aren't going to turn themselves in. So from persuasion at that level, and of course reminding districts through a letter I did to all the school districts and superintendents that they had a duty really to do mandatory training for mandatory reporters. The Gatto bill, I think, gets us there. Noted your concerns in a recent editorial about an area that may be unclear in the legislation. I've looked at it. I think it could, you could read it as it does require the mandatory reporters to actually take the training, but I'm going to work with the committee chair, with Mike Gatto himself, with ledge analysts, to make sure it's crystal clear. So some additional amendments might be needed, and I'm going to raise the issue to make sure you don't want to have a mandatory training program and then have it optional to participate. The bill does say that the mandatory reporters must show proof of having taken it. That's a little bit different than saying you must take it.
Your opponent was in here just before you arrived, and kind of felt like some of your ads were a little unfair.
I haven't heard anything directly from him about that.
Okay. I mean, you called him a Wall Street banker, I believe.
Former Wall Street banker.
Okay.
He had that on his website not too long ago. It's part of his background.
Okay. How long was he a Wall Street banker?
He self-identified as being a Wall Street banker. I don't know.
You said he was drawing education salary in the millions.
I think the ad said something about the total package of perks and trips and benefit package.
I think the ad actually says, and spent millions on his Wall Street banker Marshall Tuck ran a chain of schools and spent millions on his salary, TV ads, parties, and trips instead of helping kids.
We can provide you the documentation for that.
Could you please?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The ad got kind of skewered, as I recall, by the Bee. Is that correct?
By who?
By the Sacramento Bee.
I don't recall.
But you stand by that.
Yes.
Okay.
Dan, you're being quiet.
He's my agent.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Graduation rates. Record high, right?
That's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
80%.
80%. Tell me the pluses and minuses. Give me your overall evaluation. Graduation rates in the state.
We have work to do. We have work to do on many fronts, but one of the areas we have important work to do is we want to lift all graduation rates up for all ethnic groups, for all income groups. Certainly that's a goal. We need to catch up African American young men and African American young women and Latino young men and women as well So there is an achievement gap. There is a gap. The good news is, by a small amount, the increase in graduation rates and also increase in test scores was going up faster for Latino Californian students and African American students. It's my goal. I mean, I'm a teacher, so I, again, wake up every day. How can I assure the success of all students? I chose to teach in a Title I community. I could have taught up in Walnut Creek. I specifically chose to work in a challenged community because I have a heart for those kids that need more attention, more help. And the local control funding formula does a lot to help get to that, but more needs to be done. I want to see our graduation rates go right up, where Finland is. We should be at 95%. That's where I think Finland is, and rated by many as one of the best education systems in the world.
Well, you could raise them to, you could use the Louisiana method to raise.
Yeah, but we haven't chosen that path, Dan. That's true. You could dilute
Yeah.
what it means to graduate.
Right.
I think we've set high standards, and districts by and large across the state have set high standards.
Well, what about college readiness rates? That's
That's
not
huge.
necessarily related, but it can be.
Yes, and working on that, and again, the whole emphasis. Early on, and this is a report. I didn't bring one for Barbara and Ed, sorry, but I have my blueprint for great schools, which details a whole set of actions to improve graduation rates and college-going rates. One of the more recent installments of goals we set out here was the $500 million that the legislature gave me and my department to do career pathway trust fund grants. Contra Costa, through Joe Ovick's office, got about an $8 million grant. Peralta College and Alameda and Contra Costa worked together on another $15 million grant. What we find in these partnership programs is students get a taste of the real work world. They get excited about their education. They do their homework because it has a purpose. It's related to a goal they have, a career they want to achieve. And they get excited. They're not dropping out into drugs and gangs, and they're graduating more, and they're graduating more ready to go to college. Now, we need to find ways to help more students get the A to G, get the AP courses, and look across the state of where there are gaps in that part of the delivery system. But I'll tell you, my experience on the partnership academies, half of which, by the way, of the 500 we have, are in the STEM fields. And we need those engineers and technicians and mathematicians coming from our high schools, from these programs. This new approach, the first $250 million is out the door, the next $250 million we're queuing up to get out the RF requests for proposals, basically, the grants. It's phenomenal what we're seeing in terms of partnerships between business, opening up their doors with internships, with mentorships, having technical staff come and teach classes in the schools, identifying the needs of the regional economy. In San Jose and Silicon Valley, it's going to be computers, computer science, coding. In working with Linda Resnick and Paramount Farms down in Delano and Avenal and Bakersfield, they want to see the young men and women who are the sons and daughters of the campesinos and the packing house workers. They want to see those students thrive and go to college and come back and be the ag biologists, be the chemists, be the accountants, be the computer experts. And so they have a grant that's bringing together Grimway Farms, Paramount, a number of schools, 4 community college districts. We're really seeing community college districts around the state stepping up. It's really exciting to see what we're accomplishing there and the open doors of cooperation. So in terms of college going rate, these are really important steps in the right direction. In the blueprint for great schools, I indicated early on my support for channeling more resources for low-income students and for English learners. So we've done a big emphasis on that. With English learners, I reorganized a department to bring all the different units that had anything to do with learning the English language and helping English learners, bilingual education. We put them all in a very effective unit, hired Karen Kaplan-Diero, one of the nation's experts in English language learning, and we are really focusing. We want to be helping school districts who now have a local decision to make about where they invest their dollars. We want to help them make the right decision with the right best practices in learning the English language. If we can't succeed in helping our English learners succeed, California's economy and our society will be in trouble. And so that's where I'm really focusing a lot of attention in a multidimensional fashion on how we can get more students ready for college. And that's not to say a student who decides to go into an apprenticeship program or go into a technical field, get a 2-year certificate at the community college, that's good too. There are jobs out there that students thrive on, and they like to use their hands. They're good at the other set of skills that would be needed in those jobs, and we need graduates from our schools making that.
Tom, let me ask you a question. Coming back to this ad for one quick second. Did you run other ads during this primary campaign, or was it just the one?
One.
Why did you choose to make the one ad an attack ad?
Well, I want to say we're just going to keep that to ourselves, I think. You know, it was an ad showing distinctions between the candidates. You could call it that. I would call it making it clear.
Well, it seems to be all about your two opponents. But it doesn't seem to have much about what you've done in your first 4 years in office. Well,
a matter of resources. I don't have a lot of millionaires dropping $1 million, $1.5 million into my IEs. I raised money that I did. And
let's talk about your resources. And, I can't remember in all the time I've known you that you've ever been on the other side of the CTA on any significant issue.
Well, you're not correct about that.
And
and there's multiple examples, including this issue on the fund, capping the reserve funds. 8 districts in the state said they needed a waiver from No Child Left Behind. There were some things that I didn't think were right about the waiver process, but these 8 superintendents said, we need flexibility. We don't want to be trapped in this sanctions under having our Title I money directed towards tutoring, sending out bad letters about our schools being bad schools. The teachers union asked me to oppose the waiver. I wrote a letter in support of the waiver. Another example is career technical education. I sponsored a measure to have more career courses as counting for graduation standards, and CTA opposed it. The vocational education teachers supported it, but the union did not.
Okay. But they are still a very significant force, financially. I mean, you're talking about millionaires dropping in money. They're millionaires dropping in money to your campaign. I mean, where's the distinction?
I think you have something maybe 300,000 teachers, 280,000 teachers. I think it amounts to something like $15 a teacher. So that's one way that you focus support is through union organizations. I'm proud to say I am a teacher and proud to be a teacher. I'm also proud to have administrators. I have the vast majority, something like 80% of the elected county administrators also supporting me, because I'm known as a bridge builder, someone they can trust, someone who does things which are in the best interest of kids. And it's natural that I would be supported by teachers' unions as well as by
80% of the elected
county superintendents.
Superintendents, I'm sorry.
The 58.
Right.
There's a few that aren't elected.
I'm sorry that I misheard what you said.
Right, right. And a large number of outstanding administrators throughout the state are supporting me, along with firefighters and police officers, because I take a strong stand on school safety, that we need to have good after-school programs. We need to have, I'm working with Attorney General Kamala Harris on truancy, on chronic absenteeism. We need to do more in terms of mandatory training and making sure that kids aren't abused, getting rid of the teachers that are creating abuse. But I have a good cross-section of people supporting me. I have major business leaders in the state also supporting me. because they see me as being fair, but also being on point, being experienced, having determination to implement these big programs, Common Core, local control funding formula.
Anything else, Barb, Ed?
I think we're good down here. Ed?
Yep.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you
What
very
I'd like
much.
to do, if I may, is show you some of the other work product, and you can take a look at it. There's also a key to where you can tap into these electronically.
Yeah, we got to see what Hefner's doing.
Oh, yeah. You know, I've led an initiative on bringing computers into the schools. I've been doing this for 10, 12 years. My initiative, No Child Left Offline, says we need one-to-one computing capacity. No Child Left Offline. Right, I see Barbara smiling. And one-to-one computing capacity 24/7 for our students in 5 years. My STEM report came out, Innovate. Again, how do we meet the needs of our economy? I have this information here on the 2 Contra Costa grants. I'll shoot you a reference, Barb and Ed, for the ones that we should have in Santa Clara County.
Okay.
Okay.
Send
Yeah.
us web links. That'll be fun.
And I'll just, I think Paul has something for you too, but I'll just hand this out just as a reminder, which you know already, you know me. I'm determined. I'm a bulldog when it comes to getting things done, and so I'm determined to turn our schools in the right direction through the Quality Education Improvement Act. I've done school transformations in about 450 schools. But this is just a note. I've authored 3 Prop 1As, which your papers kindly endorsed, one of which was the largest percentage yes vote in the state's history. And these efforts took 4 or 5 years. Some of them took a little longer, 6 years. The local control on the ERAF and the property tax, I crafted that measure after dozens of hearings, building coalitions. That's me. I'm a coalition builder. I'm a team builder. I'm a coach. I'm a teacher. So I just wanted to leave that with you, that I've done some good work by building strong teams. Having authored 3 Prop 1As is a little bit unusual for a legislator, but it took a lot of working together and a lot of teamwork. And I thank you for your time and look forward to further questions, and we'll send you some information about career tech possibilities in Santa Clara County.
Great.
Thank you
You're
very
not
much.
still coaching, are you?
No, that's I still get my exercise in, but
No doubt of that.
my youngest daughter just did a 3:12 marathon, so that was 7:20 per mile for 26 miles. So that's my 27-year-old. So I'm proud of her.
Yeah.
And now I got 2 grandkids, so I'm just trying to keep up with my grandkids.
No, I can do that kind of pace as long as the gas runs on my Honda.
Very good, very good. Good to see you all.
Good to see you, Tom.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.